So usually I do all of like my videos standing up in my little corner over there. But today I feel like sitting down. So I'm sitting down. So today's video is a movie review over this movie. I actually saw it I think yesterday. It's called Woman in the Window. Yeah, that's right. That's what it's called. Woman in the Window. That movie tugged on my heartstrings. Um, it was not an easy movie to watch without feeling sad. It was good. I mean, it was, like I said, it kicked me in the gut, but it was good though. So basically, of course, spoiler warning if you haven't seen the movie yet. This woman, apparently, she's living in a house by herself in, I think it was Manhattan, New York, and she has really bad, I think it was like anxiety, like she can't go outside. I forgot what the name of the phobia it was, but she couldn't go outside, like, at all. And she was meeting, I think, with a therapist. He was trying to tell her, like, you need to do XYZ, whatever. She was a therapist, but just like the irony of that, well, she was a child therapist or like a minor therapist or whatever. And it felt so, I felt so bad right off the rip, because it was like she was living in this house, and that house was like, I won't say it was raggedy, like, like Raggedy Ann, like the little dollhouse, like the raggedy dollhouse. No, I won't say that it was raggedy like that raggedy, but it was raggedy. And she was up in there by herself. I'm like, I couldn't have been up in there by myself. Not by myself all that time, but she was up in there by herself, and like she had like a little thing where she would go to the door to see who was out there, and she'd be like, oh, just pull on the door and come inside. And some apparently new people moved across the street, and some woman came over who I guess was the wife of the guy, or the family who moved across the street, was talking to her, and she was like, oh, well, you must be so and so. She was like, well, what would make you think that, or what would make you say that? And that was a very like intricate detail that I should have held on to, but it smacked me in the face later on because I didn't. So she met this woman, and of course she's having flashbacks to her own issues, her own trauma, her own what happened to her in her past. And I think throughout the movie, she thought she was talking to her husband or her ex-husband or her soon-to-have-been ex-husband on the phone, but apparently all that time she wasn't. It was just going on in her head, and she was taking, also I think she was taking medication, and she was drinking. And I'm like, lady, how many times do you have to see those commercials or people where they tell you, do not drink and take this medication, or do not drink and take medication? Like, that's just a big no-no. Like, you never do stuff like that. You never drink and take medication. And she could have just been doing it because she didn't care about her life anyways at that point, I think. And it's just, even the lady that was, she was like, I don't think you should be drinking while taking that. And I'm like, this woman is gonna mess herself up. Like I said, already I was upset and I was worried. I'm like, this woman she's dealing with mental issues, she's drinking, not drinking, drinking, and taking medication. I'm like, oh my god. And she's living by herself, so if anything happens to her, God forbid, nobody will know. But anyway, so the kid comes over and he's acting all like weird, and like he's hiding something, like he's upset. She's like, is everything all right at home? She was like, I'm a therapist. I'm a therapist for children, so if you need anything, you just come right over, you're welcome. And I mean, I honestly think she was just being nice. She was just being nice. She was just being friendly. She was just trying to be helpful. I think she just thought that maybe that something was going on because of the way he was acting. He was acting so like suspicious. Like, don't be suspicious. That's the kind of suspicious he was acting. So it was kind of hard for her not to think something was going on with him. He was like, oh, everything's fine, don't worry. I'll just, I'll come back. Sure, I'll take you up on that. And he gave her like some present or whatever. And then she sees them fighting, and she's like looking through her windows, and everybody else. And this is what I don't understand. Maybe it's just me, you know. If I live anywhere, I'm not gonna have. If I have large windows, you better believe there will be curtains up everywhere, and they will be closed, especially at nighttime. Ain't nobody got time for that foolishness, okay? Like, I know it was just her, but anybody could have been peeping through the windows looking at them. And she just happens to witness this woman get murdered, shanked to death with a knife. That was actually her knife. I think the boy borrowed it, or somebody borrowed it. And I'm like, see what you done did? Like, I get you were trying to, like, be on the lookout, but you should have been, like, using that camera to record what was going on if you were gonna be a peeping Mrs. Tom, you know. And now look what you done done. Now you were a witness to a whole murder because you want to look through the window and not mind your business. And I get it, she was trying to help, but again, if you're gonna help all the way. At least record and take pictures, like, you know what I'm saying? And that's what, like, she called the cops, and the cops were like, well, did you at least take any pictures? Like, where's the proof? And she was like, no, I didn't take any pictures. And they were like, well, we have nothing else to say to you, ma'am. And then they, you know, the husband came over and brought his wife over, and she was like, oh, I'm Jane Russell. And she was like, you're not Jane. I met Jane the other day, and you're not her. And they were looking at her like, have you been on your meds, ma'am? And I was like, that also I didn't like, whenever she was trying to tell them that wasn't that woman, or that somebody was lying, and they were looking at her like, I'm sorry, she's crazy, like, don't worry, she's just seeing things, like, you just lucked out, you lucked out with the crazy neighbor. And she was sitting there like, so y'all really gonna act like I'm crazy? And she ended up letting it go at first, but then, like, the boy came back over, and he was like crying and stuff, and then the dad came over and smacks him in front of her, talking about, so me and my family alone, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. How dare you call him over here? You're a grown woman, he's just a boy. And I'm like, for all of you who have seen the movie, first of all, I told my brother, because he was the one who convinced me to watch this movie, he could have did a better job. Like, I get it, he probably was trying to keep him or her away from him, because he probably knew his son was crazy or was doing something he had no business. But I feel like the dad could have did a better job with the way he warned her. Like, and then him smacking her, like I'm pretty sure you knew a little bit of something about this woman. She's a woman, so of course she's gonna have sympathy, especially for a kid. You smacked your son in front of her. What did you expect her to think? You didn't expect her to think that you were like a crazy abusive dad or something like that? Like, I just feel like he could have did. Like, I get it. Like, he probably didn't know what to say at the moment. He was just trying to spout anything to make her stay away from him, because he knew that he was dangerous and he didn't want her to end up dead or missing. But I feel like he could have did a better job at trying to, like, warn her, you know? I don't know. He could have did a better job than that. But anyway, so I'm thinking it was the dad, because he had a whole hammer out with the other lady who they claimed that she didn't see. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this man is over here abusing his wife and his son. Somebody has to call the police. This is an injustice. And then she has a whole tenant living downstairs. And I didn't like how he went off on her. Like, I get it, he was mad because she was, like, going through his mail and stuff like that. But I'm like, but some of the stuff he said was just unwarranted, I think. But anyways. So then she's looking through those photos, and she's basically making like a literal video of her getting ready to commit suicide. And I was like, please don't do this, ma'am, please. And then they show you what happened to her family, and I'm like, and in the video she was like, I just want to be forgiven. And then she screams, and I'm like, man, like, I kind of wanted to cry a little bit, because it's like, I couldn't imagine like the level of like regret and like heartache, and just like the regret that she was feeling after all that happened, and having to live with it. She had literally got to the point where she decided she was tired of living. She was tired of living, and she was tired of living with what happened. And I was like, please don't do this, ma'am. And like, then I forgot what stopped her, but she had went to go do something, and then she saw the cat, And then she was looking through the pictures that she took, that she put on her computer, and she realized that she took a picture where the reflection of the Jane Russell was in the champagne glass. And she goes, I got a picture. And so she goes to, I think his name was David, the guy who she was letting stay in the basement. She's like, David, you see that in there, right? You see her in there. And he was like, yes, I see her in there. And she was like, and then finally he was like, that's Katie. That's the girl that I was telling you about, that I saw the other day. I brought her over. And I'm like, so you didn't think to let your landlord know that you brought a whole woman over? You didn't think to let, never mind. And she was like, wait a minute, Katie? And she was like, but that's the lady who's earring, you know, the earring this and earring that. And she was like, oh, no, wait a second. And then, oh, and not to mention them calls that she was making, and, you know, how some lady, you know, fell off of a roof. And she was like, Katie. And then she goes back, and then she realizes whenever she was talking to Jane Russell, she never actually told her that that was her name. And she was like, oh my freaking goodness. And she was like, oh my goodness. And then David, all you hear is him going back downstairs. Well, I guess he was going back downstairs to like finish clearing his junk out. And all you hear was him go, and then fall down the stairs or fall down. And she was like, David, please tell me you're alright, David. And then lo and behold, the son we thought was completely innocent comes up the stairs, and I'm like, it was him the whole time. He basically confessed. Like, if she had cameras rolling, like, she could have had everything. He confessed to, well, being connected, if I'm not mistaken, to the woman who fell off the roof, killed his own mother, then came after David, talking about you were just an easy target. If you would have just left it alone, you would have been fine, but now I gotta get rid of you. And I'm just like, oh God. It was like, I couldn't believe, that threw me for a loop, for real. I couldn't believe that it was him that entire time. And I'm like, so now wait a minute. So this must mean his father knew he was out here killing women, and he didn't do nothing about it. I can't stand parents that don't make sure the children that they gave birth to and failed to raise properly, so that they won't go out and do something crazy like that they don't hold them accountable. Anyways, he's chasing her through the house. She's trying to get away. David tries with his last, and I'm just like, poor David tries with his last might to stop him from killing her, and then gets killed himself. She goes up for the first time, you know, other than whenever she tried to leave, you know, that first time, goes on the roof. It's raining. And it was just brutal, like him beating her up, and when he took the garden rake to her face, 3 holes. Oh God, that was horrible. Like, that was brutal. I was like, her face is messed up forever now. And then she had the knife, but you know, when he took that, like I said, when he took that thing to her face, I was like, that I was starting to believe that he was gonna kill her. I was like, he's gonna kill her. He's gonna get away. Doggone it. And then he gonna have the audacity to rub it in her face, talking about something. You wanted to die anyways, so just let me kill you. And I'm like, he's trying to drown her in the rainwater, then picks her up, and somehow she gets the upper hand on him. And that old rickety crickety raggedy dome piece on the roof, you know, that David said they were gonna have to replace, she manages to knock him through the air. I was like, he deserved it so much. And at least the cop apologized. Now I'm like, that's what I'm for, taking accountability, because you know how many times cops, judges, lawyers have screwed people over, and they were just like, what happens? He actually came to her and was like, I'm sorry, we messed up for real. Like, we dropped the ball on this. We messed up for real, for real. We screwed you over for real. And he apologized. I was like, see, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I was so happy when I saw that. I'm not gonna lie. I know it's not something that much to be happy over, but it made me happy, okay?